Hello and welcome everybody. This is my take on this. My name is Martin. Today we're watching a video from Graham Stephan. I actually do like him. He I will not say is a role model, but still he has a lot of good ideas when it comes to making money, investing and so on. And I followed him for the last, I would say 5 years or so. And he brought out a video just the other day, why I don't spend money. He's a very frugal person. And I think we can learn a lot from him, so let's see what he has to say.
What's up, you guys? It's Graham here. So I think it's no surprise, but for those who have seen my channel for a while or know me in person, you know that I'm extremely frugal. And even calling it that might be pretty generous. I'm financially prudent, might be a good way to call it. But no matter the term for it, my default has always been don't spend money. Even today, I still try to keep my expenses to a minimum. I aim to save 100% of what I make by only spending the money my investments make me. And no matter how much money I make, I'm still not going to get guacamole at Chipotle because it seems like a waste of money. I still wait until after 9 p.m. to get the happy hour pricing on all-you-could-eat sushi. I still daily drive the exact same 2019 Tesla Model 3 that I bought for $78 a month. And I still buy generic brand foods from the grocery store because the name brand item is the exact same thing for $2 more.
Yeah, that's actually pretty true. I understand where he's coming from. I kind of do it the same way. I used to always buy the brand name stuff. Some things I still do, like, the brand name Coca-Cola is just better than the non-brands. But other than that, I'm pretty much buy from Aldi's and Lidl's and so on, because their quality is pretty good and there's no need to pay more for the foods that you actually buy if you can get them for 20, 30 or more less than the brand names, right? So he's right on that. The same with the car. There's no need to buy a new car every 2-3 years. It's just no need for it. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever, right? And also when he says he doesn't buy the guacamole at Chipotle, I do understand that too. I don't do those things either. Well, I'm not going to Chipotle anyways. So if there would be some sort of a comparison going on, I do enjoy Cafe Rio versus Chipotle way more. Just saying. So yeah, nevertheless, I understand where he's coming from. Wasting money is just not what you should do. And that's what he actually is teaching us with this video right here.
Never made sense to me. Seriously, without exaggeration, besides a few carefully crafted purchases that I'll talk about later in the video, I don't like spending money. And even though some people might think I've lost my mind, yeah, they're probably right. Just kidding. I promise if you actually hear me out, you'll see that there is a method to the madness of not spending money, and how adopting a few of these fiscally prudent practices could end up making you a fortune in the...
Well, I'm just looking at his haircut though, so sorry to say that, but he might want to invest in going to the barbershop, so just saying.
Long run, especially if one day you want to live off your investments and make enough. Fiscally conservative psychology, I really began to understand the value of money and just how hard it was to keep when I got a part-time job in high school. Back then, I was making maybe $100 to $200 a week doing photography for a marine aquarium wholesaler. And I distinctly remember when I started adding up the cost of how much I could buy, I was blown away at how expensive everything was. I just remembered thinking to myself, if I make $20 an hour, going out to a restaurant is going to cost me 2 hours out of my entire day just to pay.
Interesting that he said, when I was making $20 an hour, that's still to this day actually a pretty good salary. There's a lot of people in Las Vegas that make way less than $20 an hour, still to this day. And I think when he was like in high school, I don't know how old he is, but it might have been at least like 15 to 20 years ago, right? Yeah, still to this day, $20 is for quite some people still actually a lot of money. So that the meal would have taken him 2 hours of work to pay for it. Most people don't think like that. They just don't. And he's right. You should actually think like that. And it's very, very important. We would not be in this national debt crisis, where the personal consumer debt is so high, it has never been as high like this ever before. If people would think a little bit more about, like he does, oh, if I go and eat this now, I have to work 2-3 hours just for this meal. Does it make any sense, right?
Pay for it. How does that make any sense? How could I ever do that? Or I would drive by a $2 million house and I'd calculate if I save $1,000 every single week, it would take me 40 years just to be able to live there. Honestly, at that age, I just figured unless I won the lottery, I'm just like, how do people do it? I even remember a customer came in one time with a $10,000.
That's why lotteries actually exist, exactly for that reason. They actually get the people who think, oh, I will never be able to make that. They get them to play the lottery and spend even more money. There is a lottery store right on the border of Nevada to California in Prim. And so lotteries are not available in the state of Nevada, obviously, because otherwise nobody would go to the casinos, right? So there's this lottery store, and whenever the Powerball or whatever those things are called are, up in the hundreds of millions, thousands of people flock to this lottery store right on the border and stand hours in the heat in line to buy a ticket. It's ludicrous, but that's the thing, what he says, most people don't really ever think that they're able to afford these type of things. And it's not that they couldn't. They just don't know how. Nobody ever told them not to waste money. Nobody ever told them, look, you can do this and this and that to, create some wealth. They just don't understand the concept of it, unfortunately. But, that's why, the lottery exists.
$1,000 Rolex on. And it blew my mind that somebody would spend $10,000 on a watch. But you know what? I'll tell you, when I got my real estate license at 18 years old, I would drive and commute 45 minutes one way every single morning to drive into Beverly Hills because that's the area that I wanted to sell real estate in, and those are the people that I wanted to be around and learn from. And the funny thing is, the more time that I spent over there, the more that sort of lifestyle and mindset just became normal. Like after a few years, it seemed common for people to buy $5 million houses in cash. People would drive around Bentleys like they're Honda Civics. It was kind of like the Wizard of Oz when you finally see what's behind the curtain. I was this kid who didn't come from any of that. And to go and see a client drop $50,000 at Saks Fifth Avenue on a random afternoon was like, what? Honestly, just seeing that successful people like this were out there and that they weren't anything special. They weren't any more talented than I was. They didn't work harder than I was. They were just normal, average people who happened to become extremely wealthy doing something that they became very good at. And it inspired me to believe that if they're able to do it, I would be able to do it too. Well,
yeah, he's absolutely right with that statement. That's what you need to do. You need to say, well, if they can do it, I can do it too. You just have to find the right niche, the right thing to do in order to reach that goal, right? And that's the important part. It will take a long time to reach that goal, but you will eventually reach it. That is actually what he's telling us. And that's absolutely true. And I know so many people that have a talent in something and they're just wasting it. And I really don't understand why I tell them, look, you're good with this and this and that. And they're just wasting it. They're not actually using that talent and make money off of it.
But now, almost 20 years later, the roles have flipped, and I could be in their exact same position if I wanted to be, except I'm in a spare bedroom turned podcast room talking to a camera by myself on a Thursday afternoon. Okay, but seriously, I still have a very similar psychology today as I did 20 years ago when I was making $100 a week. Like, I remember, on the one hand, just how far I could stretch $20, but on the other hand, those habits never really went away. Like, I could make a lot of money in a month, not spend any of it, and still obsess why the water bill's $75 higher than the previous month. Yes, I know it's completely irrational, but it's that sort of mentality that's kept me grounded, even when things are going well. And it's because of...
Yeah, he's right. Those are the things that you kind of need to keep you grounded, right? Most people, they don't care that the energy bill is $200-300 a month. They don't really think about, is this a lot? Maybe it's too much. Or maybe it's not. Who cares? They don't think about that the car they're driving, gets maybe 8 miles to the gallon or something like that. They don't care. They say, well, I like this car, period. However many miles it gets to the gallon, who cares? They just don't. And those things you always have in life. They don't care that they have to drive an hour plus to work every day. So they spend 2-3 hours just commuting. Because, well, they have that house, they want it in whatever location, right? So they don't think, well, I'm actually wasting 2-3 hours every day, which is a lot of time over the year. And time is something you will never ever get back. It's actually the most important asset in the world is time, because you will never get that back, period, no matter what you do. And so that's what he says, that, if prices go up for something, you're like, what the hell, why is this happening? And it kind of irks you. And he's right. It should irk you, because you should think of, how can I lower those prices? It's important. But most people, as said, they don't really care about those things for whatever reason. I really don't understand why.
That mindset that's helped lead me here today, which is a lifestyle that the younger me could have only dreamed of. On top of that, in terms of saving money, I remember hearing about a concept early on that completely changed my entire perception of money. And it's the philosophy that I only earn what my money makes me. As an example of this, if I have $10,000, I don't view that as having $10,000 to spend. Instead, I see that as actually being worth $30 a month, adjusted for inflation, for the rest of my life. And that's what I base my entire budget from. In fact, I try for a more conservative 2.75% spend rate. So for every $100,000 invested is really worth $2,750. And yes, $100,000 is objectively a lot of money. But when you think of it in terms of $2,750, it changes your entire mentality when it comes to money and what it's actually worth and what it could do for you invested. And by keeping your overhead as low as possible, you start to accumulate more options that give you the flexibility and freedom to...
I think he said that wrong when he said 2.75% per month. That would be over 30% a year. I think he actually meant 2.75 a year. That might be an interest rate you get at the bank when you put your money in a savings account or something like that. So I think, I'm not sure, but that's what I think he wanted to say. So the $100,000 is worth $2,750 per year, right? That's when they always say, okay, you needed to have at least $1 million or $2 million in a savings account, let's say. That would be kind of the safest place, right? To actually have somewhat enough every month to live off without doing nothing, right? So that's what I think. I might be wrong, but I think he said that wrong with the 2,750 per month out of 100,000. That would be actually quite a lot of money, to be honest.
Really pursue what means the most for you. Now, if that's going and spending $4,000 at the Gucci store, totally fine. You do you. But what I found is that the real enjoyment just comes from having the option to buy something if you really want to, not actually going and buying the thing itself. And the funny thing is that once you get to a point where you could reasonably afford practically anything you want, the desire to own most things just goes away completely. All of a sudden, it's not as impressive as it once was when you couldn't afford them. So what do I spend money on then? Well, I have no problem spending on things that save me time, reduce stress, and just give me peace of mind. So in terms of what else I spend my money on, I know this might sound a bit stupid, but I have a system called the dollar to fun ratio. For every purchase, I take the amount of enjoyment I get, divide that by the cost, and this determines how much value I'm getting for every dollar spent. For example, I found this incredible all-you-could-eat sushi spot in Vegas for $30. To me, that's like a 90 out of 100 on the fun scale. Divide that by the $30 cost, and you get a dollar to fun rate.
That is kind of funny, actually, the fun ratio, the fun scale, which is yeah, I don't know if you can really quantify that the way he does, but yeah, why not? I'm not sure if like going to a sushi place is like any fun really. I have no idea. So to me, it all depends. Everybody has a different fun scale, I guess. It could be fun just to go hiking, which costs $0, right? It could be fun to jump in the pool in your backyard, which essentially costs just, maintaining the pool, something like that, So it always kind of depends on what is fun to, each individual, right? Because sometimes fun might not be the same for you as it is for me, right?
Ratio of 3. Now, compare that to something else like $200 wine tasting, which to me would be like a 20 out of 100 on the wine scale, and you get a score of 0.1. In this case, the $30 all-you-could-eat...
I know where he's getting at here, but, the wine tasting could be actually pretty cool. You drive around, in the cool Napa Valley areas. It's a very nice scenery, and you're sitting there, on a cool, made-up French castle or something like that, right? And you taste those different types of wine, you have fun with your friends and family and so on. That actually, could be, for other people, a way higher fun scale as it is for him. And so it is kind of hard to quantify what fun really means, to be honest. But, if it works for him, that's fine.
Sushi is 30 times more dollar efficient than going wine tasting for $200. So that's a better use of money. Of course, I'm sure some people will say, but Graham, you have a multi-million-dollar house and a Ford GT and Rolex watches. How dare you say you don't spend any money? You're a hypocrite. Okay, this is the part that I was really looking forward to talking about, because when most people think about expensive houses, cars, and watches, they go about it all wrong. They overpay for a house that they could barely afford. They buy a car that depreciates like a rock.
Yeah, that is definitely true. That is so true. There's so many expensive communities in America. Really nice communities, don't get me wrong. I love them, and they have amazing houses and they look cool and everything. And you drive by and you see all the fancy cars, the Porsches, the Bentleys, whatever it might be. They're standing in front of those houses, right? I always wonder, how the hell can they afford it? It's not like if you're in other places in the world, yes, there are people with a lot of money, but they're far and few in between. There's maybe an area where there's like 10, 20 of these houses. And then maybe, here and there you see that, but it's very hard actually to see. Whereas in America, in every city, in every town you drive around, you have these areas, gated communities and stuff with $1 million houses and cars, easy $100, $200, $300,000. And I never understood how that actually works, to be honest, how people can afford all those things. But I think what he just said, they just way overpay. They don't really think about this. It could be an investment. They just lose money on it, period. And they don't really know on how to pay for all these things. They're kind of cash poor, as what a lot of people say, that, they have the big house and the cool car, but they have no money in the bank. So, and he just does it the other way around, which, yeah, is I think a good point.
Or they pay twice the MSRP for a Rolex that's overhyped because John Mayer says he likes it. The truth is, most people buying these items are completely misinformed, and with a little planning and some structure, there's a way to buy practically anything you could ever want for free. Take this house, for example. I calculated that it would pay for itself in full just from the savings of leaving California. I also ran the numbers and realized that it made sense to take out as much money as I could.
Yeah, there's another point to that. So, yeah, he lived in California, he moved to Vegas. I actually do live in Vegas. The thing is, Vegas is not really a place where you actually want to live, to be honest. And so I much rather would be in California. I lived in California before, and it's a way nicer place. The nature is way better, and you're close to the ocean. The weather is way better. It's not like 120 degrees in the summertime, and in the wintertime it's it's not snowing when you're like in LA or something. Whereas it can snow in Vegas. It can get pretty cold there. So overall, the lifestyle, let's say, is way better in California. So in my mind, there's no doubt on that. So you have to think for yourself, okay, do you want to buy a property somewhere just to save money, but have, a somewhat okay life, or you want to have a property somewhere where you enjoy life? And as I said before, time is the most important thing. You're not getting that one back. And if you live in a place that is just okay versus you're happy, you much rather choose the happy and not have the money. That's my philosophy, to be honest. I think that's kind of important also to take into account when it comes to all these things that he's talking about.
At a 2.875% interest rate. Well, guess what? 5 years later, I've made a 700% return on my down payment, and the tax savings have more than paid for the entire mortgage, meaning I've made money buying the house. It's free. Same thing with the 40.
Yeah, when he says the tax savings, it's only because he makes way over $1 million a year, way over that. So you can look at his. Sometimes he actually brings out his earnings for his YouTube channel and stuff, and he's way up in the millions there. And with all he's doing, I'm sure he's more like, let's say, 3 to 5, maybe even more million a year that he's making. And so, of course, with that, then you save quite a bit on taxes compared to California. That's definitely true. But then again, as said, that's not for the average person. You know, the average person, or not even the average person, if you're a 6-figure salary, yeah, you might save 10, 20,000 if you move to Nevada versus California. Maybe you save even 30,000. I don't know. And I think it's more in the $10,000, $15,000 price range. So it's not really that much. And then again, you actually might have to pay higher property taxes and other stuff. Car insurance is ludicrously expensive in Vegas. So overall, you might not really save a lot if you're a regular earner. So you have to keep that in mind. Yes, if you're in the $1 million plus per year, yeah, you might save quite a bit. But is it worth it? You always have to keep that in mind. Is it worth it?
GT, I bought it 4 years ago, knowing that its worst case scenario would be like I'm putting money in a savings account. And guess what? That car has now gone up 50% in value. So I've made money owning a Ford GT. It's a free car. Or take this Rolex. It's not the newest, latest, greatest, mass-produced timepiece that Rolex is trying to pawn off to their customers so they can move up on a wait list. Instead, it's a 1980s gold Rolex Oyster Quartz. They only ever made about 5,000 of these. They're discontinued, and I paid $12,500 for it. Think about that for a second. The gold value alone in this watch, if you melted it down for scrap, is worth more than I paid for the watch itself. So I was able to get a fairly rare Rolex, again, for free. The same could be said about the Rolex Daytona. Instead of buying the Panda Daytona, which is impossible to obtain at retail price without a massive purchase history, I found a 1998 Zenith Daytona with original box and papers for the same price that a Panda would be at MSRP. So again, it's like I'm able to get a free watch because I could sell it for more than the price that I paid for it. It's a no-brainer. Honestly, this is the only way I could ever justify buying or owning certain items when I'm certain that at the worst-case scenario, I'm not going to lose any money on it. And you don't have to have millions of dollars to do this either. Like, chances are, if you do some research and some planning, you could find a money-making version that...
Yeah, he's right. That's the thing what most people actually don't do. They don't do the research. They just say, oh, I want this, and they don't really think about, oh, maybe I should look a little bit deeper into it. Is it a good value for the price and so on? Most people don't do that. They just see it, oh, this is awesome. I just get it, right? Not really looking into maybe there's a similar version for half the price, Or, that's really this super duper version. Is it worth it, So a lot of people don't do that. And that's what, the companies actually bank on, that people don't do that, so they can easier sell these things to people, right? And so you always have to look deeper into it. Is it worth buying this item?
Holds its value of practically anything. Like, chances are, a fun Honda S2000 is probably going to cost you a lot less than the responsible Toyota Corolla, or a used Tissot PRX could be sold to someone else for the same price that you paid. A barely used MacBook Pro might cost you nothing over a year if you negotiate the right deal. With a little planning and patience, there's a way to get almost anything that you could ever want for free. Like, even when it comes to travel, there are so many options out there to redeem credit card points for first-class flights and hotels while spending nothing extra out of pocket. That's why when I do spend money, I make sure, at the very least, I'm not going to be losing any of it. And I've been doing this now for over 15 years. Like the Lotus Elise I bought. I paid $30,000 for it, and I sold it 2 years later for $30,000. I bought a Lotus Exige S240 for $50,000, and I sold it 2 years later.
Well, I guess he's a Lotus fan now, isn't he?
For $50,000. I have made money on every single house that I bought and lived in. Everything becomes free if you know what to look for and you have a little flexibility and patience to find the right deal. Rant over. Chances are if you see me with anything that looks expensive, just know that I probably found a way to get that thing for free, or I paid a price for it where it's impossible for me to lose any money on it. Except if it's a Tesla Roadster. We'll just pretend that doesn't exist. I guess this ties back to the whole frugal mindset thing, where I just don't see the point in wasting money unnecessarily, and I've still found ways to enjoy what I saved without actually spending any of the money. Plus, when you really get down to it, honestly, the basics are the most enjoyable, and beyond a certain point, the dollar to fun ratio starts getting pretty quickly diminishing returns. I know it sounds weird to say, but you probably get 90% enjoyment on that first $25,000 a year of discretionary spending. And then that extra 10% could cost you millions for every incremental uptick from there. Like, I don't think the dude getting chauffeured around in a brand new Rolls Royce is having that much more fun than the other person who's just mopping around in a free Mazda Miata with the top down.
Yeah, that's actually true. It might get pretty boring pretty fast if you get chauffeured around in that brand new Rolls Royce. It might be cool for the first couple of times to think, wow, this is so awesome. But after a short period of time, you might say, well, I'd much rather sit in this Mazda Miata and cruise around town and have fun with it. That's really true. So yeah, he has a very good point right there.
That makes sense. Or the first class plane ticket isn't that much more fun than the economy ticket with extra legroom because you got the exit row for 10% of the price. That's why maybe this helps put some things into perspective and why it's so important to be intentional with your spending. Invest as much as you can and get your money to work for you, not the other way around. From there, purposely buy things that hold their value. You could get expensive experiences for a fraction of the price by using things like credit card points. And in terms of making more money, if you can, do what I did. Surround yourself with the people you want to be more like, and over time, you will become like them. Truth be
Yeah, but that's kind of a little bit of a tough point, to be honest. Surround yourself with people that are minded like that. You first have to find those people and then get in those circles where those people are. That is oftentimes kind of hard. You need one person usually that brings you into these circles, right? And then also you have to think about, I used to be in circles like that. They also expect that you actually have money and that you can spend money. And then, you go out to fancy dinners and stuff like that. I remember once we've been to this fancy restaurant in Las Vegas. Everybody was like an entrepreneur and had, quite a lot of money. And I was invited. And at the end, I didn't know that I actually have to pay for my meal myself. And what I ate was like, $250. Not that I couldn't pay the $250, I just didn't know, because if I would have known that, I would not have spent that much, I would not have eaten that much. But once you're in that league where, $250, $500 is like nothing, that's kind of expected that you actually can pay for those things without thinking of it. So it's kind of a little bit a hit and miss with these type of people, to be honest. You might be expected that you can pay those things without thinking of it or without sweating over it, right? So that's kind of not as easy as it sounds.
Told I wouldn't have been able to have done any of this if I wasn't able to see it firsthand, and believing that if someone else is able to do it, it's possible for someone like me too. You're not going to need to commute to Beverly Hills either. There are so many amazing people online. Read what they read, watch what they watch, and eventually that mindset starts to sink in. At the end of the day, this isn't about being cheap or finding deals. It's about building a life where your money gives you the freedom to choose. So whether that's saving up for a dream car, getting $30 all-you-could-eat sushi, or just sleep in without worrying about the bills. It all comes down to being intentional, and you don't need to spend a fortune to live a rich life. I know it sounds cheesy, but I think if someone like me could do it starting with $100 a week and the obsession not to pay extra for guacamole, then you can too. So with that said, thank you so much for watching, and until next time.
Yeah, that was actually a pretty good video, I would say. So yeah, he intentionally is not wasting money. He always looks into things. Do they make sense to actually spend this money? Does this money make me more money? You know, these type of things. And I think it's actually a very good lesson what he is teaching there. It's very down to earth, and I think that's important. Some of the things he might have been lucky with buying these Lotus. You know, you never really know with a car if the price will go up or not. Yes, the Ford GT is kind of a rarity, so yes, I can see that. But as said, the Lotus and then his, mishap with the Tesla Roadster, those things happen, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And but in general, it is important. Yeah. So as said, I think it's a good lesson that he's teaching us there. To not waste money, to always do your due diligence when spending money. You know, as I said, I actually do travel quite a bit, and I always do my research on the best flights, the best hotels, not meaning the best hotels as like it needs to be a 5-star hotel. No, it can be a 3-star hotel if it has good reviews, the location is okay, and so on, and the price is fair. That's what I'm going for. And if I can use some points or whatever it might be, that's a bonus. And that's how you actually need to do those things. You cannot just waste money and not thinking of it. You know, you're driving to Disneyland and just take the next hotel that you think, oh, this is a nice hotel, period. Not thinking, oh, maybe I overpaid on this hotel, right? So that's kind of one of the problems that most people actually have, that they don't take the time to research what makes sense and what doesn't. And that's pretty much what he's telling us. Do your research before you spend your money. So yeah, that's it for today. I think it was a great video from Graham. I have the link for the video in the description down below, so you can watch the original. And that's it for today, and there will be another My Take on this video coming up soon. All right, thank you. Bye.